Quick announcement before we get started. I want to create a second channel where women react to my videos. So if you're a female viewer and you'd like to get paid to make a reaction video, check out the link in the description box below. In today's video, we're going to be looking at some anti-male memes and finding out if there's any legitimacy to the points that they're making, or we'll just have a bit of a laugh. I think it's important to be able to laugh at ourselves, male stereotypes. So let's just not take this too seriously. It's not intended as an outrage video. It's just have a bit of fun. Boys be like, I'm always here if you need a shoulder to cry on. The shoulder. Yeah, this one's gross. If a girl is upset, that's not the right time to be, trying to hit on her. You don't take that as an opportunity to make an advance. I hate men comes from a place of, I fear for my life daily because of them. I recognize that I'm not safe and take daily precautions to protect myself. And it's still never enough. But I hate women comes from can't get a girlfriend. I mean, that's kind of funny, but I actually dislike this one because you never really know what the subjective experience is like for another person. You don't know how painful it is for a man who can't get a girlfriend. So while I have complete sympathy for the fear that a woman experiences when she's walking alone to her car at night, you can't really know that that's a worse experience than a man who is alone and without a girlfriend for 10 years. And I just think that this game of comparing suffering, like my pain is worse than your pain, is so weird. When did victimhood become a competition? Like, shouldn't it be, I'm suffering, and in my suffering, it makes me empathize with the suffering of everybody else. So while I'm going through this and you're going through that, let's be there for each other. Let's show compassion because we're all in this together. We're all suffering because life is difficult. Men, zero personality, ugly looks, shitty career. A sweet, compassionate girlfriend, please. Yeah, that's pretty funny, but I think that it would work for either gender. Low quality people are not entitled to a high quality partner. Just in case no one told you today, you look hella cute and your ex ain't shit. You see these kinds of empowering messages posted on online media, and nobody ever blinks when it's for women. Just remember you're a goddess and you don't need men and stuff like that. But you have to wonder what it would be like if the gender equivalent of this meme was constantly shared. Like, hey man, just remember that as a man, you're awesome and your ex-girlfriend isn't shit. You don't need any women in your life. If that kind of thing was posted on just sort of mainstream social media accounts, people would raise their eyebrows because they would interpret it as misogynistic. As a culture, we are comfortable giving that sort of blanket empowering message to all women, like you're amazing, you're a goddess, but we're not comfortable giving that same blanket approval to all men. It's just interesting. It's just one of those double standards. Men claim to hate gold diggers, but what they actually hate is that they can't afford them. The second men get money, they entertain women who they know they would never get if they were broke. In conclusion, men love gold diggers. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. They don't want to hear that though. This one I actually think is totally legitimate. There are lots of guys who are total hypocrites. They criticize the game, but it's just because they're not winning. Don't be that guy. If you're going to criticize something, be consistent. The honeymoon phase is a myth perpetuated by men to normalize their decreased effort in a relationship. This one is really dumb because the phrase honeymoon phase literally refers to that period of relationship when people are putting in an increased level of effort. That's actually the defining feature of what makes it the honeymoon phase. So why does this person think that they've cracked some kind of secret code? That's weird. I also don't really see this one as legitimately gendered. Like, women are absolutely guilty of putting in less effort as a relationship goes on. This one doesn't just apply to men. Be a slut. Show your body. Get naked. Have all the safe, different, consensual sex you want. Be kinky. Masturbate. Make/watch porn. Make money. Just a reminder that being sexual is okay. Sometimes it is difficult to actually nail down specifically what feminists believe about this stuff, because it seems as though there's sort of one side that's like, yes, promiscuity and sexual expression is empowering for women, and then there's another side that says, no, the male gaze and all this objectification is offensive and it's sexist, and we should be, a lot more chaste and reserved and modest. I mean, I can kind of see arguments on both sides. It's just what really annoys me is when there's no consistency and a woman who claims to be a feminist is going to flip between both sides whenever it suits her in an argument without acknowledging the inconsistency of what she's saying. You know, they want to have their cake and eat it too. For me personally, I very much fall on the side that says that it is exploitative of women. And I'm sort of along the lines of what it says here at the top. This kind of shit is propaganda to make women feel like promiscuity is empowering. The truth is that being selective and waiting a long time with my sexual partners is the most empowered I've ever felt sexually. So yeah, whatever, just be consistent, you know, like don't criticize your boyfriend for watching pornography and objectifying women, but then that same evening go out wearing a low-cut top that shows off your boobs. You know, is this kind of objectification liberating and empowering, or is it controlling and patriarchal? You got to pick a lane. When he raises his voice and you're trying to work out who the fuck he thinks he's talking to. Her face is so good. I love this one, not because of gender, because it's just an awesome, high-quality person response. Like someone's trying to yell at you or gaslight you or manipulate you, and you're like, I'm sorry, how on earth do you think that this is appropriate or that you're going to get away with this? Have you forgotten who you're speaking to? This is not going to fly. I'm in bed in tears. This man really said, probably not, I am. Hey, listen, you're cool and all, but your breath smells and it makes me uncomfortable. I can brush my teeth in the morning next time. Can you do it like every day? Probably not. I really don't like being told to do stuff. My suggestion would be to find someone you think is better than me. Good luck. Who doesn't brush their teeth every day, or at least brush their teeth before going on a date? I mean, women appreciate hygiene, and he must know that, but on the same side, she must know that she handled this really badly. Can you do it like every day? I mean, she's obviously insulting him, or she's just completely socially clueless. You don't handle it badly like this and then, you know, cry victim when it goes badly. Oh yeah, this one's long. We talk about how many women were raped last year, not about how many men raped women. We talk about how many girls in a school district were harassed last year, not about how many boys harassed girls. We talked about how many teenage girls got pregnant in the state of Vermont last year, rather than how many men and teenage boys got girls pregnant. So you can see how this use of passive voice has a political effect. It shifts the focus off men and boys onto girls and women. Even the term violence against women is problematic. It's a passive construction. There's no active agent in the sentence. It's a bad thing that happens to women. It's a bad thing that happens to women. But when you look at that term, violence against women, nobody is doing it to them. It just happens. Men aren't even a part of it. I think that this is an interesting thought experiment. You know, what is more important, the victim or the perpetrator? But I think that he's off base on this one, because I don't think that in the way that we're constructing these sentences, we're really talking about the victim or the perpetrator. We're just referring to the gender that is most affected. In other words, I think that we talk about how many women get harassed as opposed to how many men harass women, because it gives a more accurate picture of how big the problem is. What I mean is that some men harass a huge number of women. So while there might be 10,000 women that get harassed, there might only be 500 men doing the harassing. I'm just going to do some quick research. Okay, so I just found this on Quora. I'm just going to read out a small part of it. So that's 0.4% of men who are convicted sex offenders and 0.01% who are convicted rapists. Even if we assume that there are 10 rapists at large for every one who has been caught, that's still only 0.1% of the male population. Okay, so 0.01 or 0.1% of the male population are rapists. That doesn't sound particularly alarming. But regardless of the accuracy of that statistic, you can see that this is an issue that affects a lot of women in terms of them being victims, but not that many men are perpetrators. So the idea that phrasing it in terms of the victims is kind of minimizing, you know, the issue, I think is completely misguided, because if we speak of it in terms of the perpetrators, then it seems like a very small problem, whereas there's actually, you know, a much larger number of victims. I also think to phrase it in a gendered way, like men are doing this, is really misleading, and it's kind of difficult to defend that because it's just such a tiny minority of men that are doing it. So to phrase it in a gendered way, it's a little bit deceptive, I think. I don't know. It's an interesting thought experiment. I just think that strategically, for any feminist out there who's actually concerned about raising awareness about rape, I actually think that it's more effective if they talk in terms of the number of victims. Smite the patriarchy. Men are always talking about what's natural, But in nature, it's always the males of the species that have to be pretty or work really hard to get the females. It's mostly true, yep. I want to see more men dressing up and wearing makeup. Dance for me. Build me a fucking house. Impress me, you mediocre fucks. I love humor like that because it escalates so quickly. You know, impress me, you mediocre fucks. It's actually something I've thought about, that in our culture, in our species, I suppose, it's women that are often, you know, dressing up to be pretty, but often in the animal kingdom, it is the males that have the more colorful plumage or whatever. But actually, if you do a deeper dive into biology, you'll often find that the men are kind of drab and plain in their appearance, but it's more common to see them sort of trying to impress women with their behavior or with fighting, you know, so they've got to compete with other males in order to be able to mate with a woman, or they've got to do a mating dance or build this amazing nest or something. They're often demonstrating their value through their behavior. And I actually think that that's pretty consistent with what we see with humans. Men are often behaving in certain ways, trying to impress women. Do you like men? No, but I'm attracted to them anyways. Poor women. They need men, but they don't even like them. This one doesn't really surprise me because we kind of have a culture that glorifies female beauty. And I think that most people, men and women, when asked objectively, you know, the human body is most beautiful in a male form or a female form, most people would say female. I actually know women, straight women with boyfriends and husbands and all that stuff, who are more turned on by images of naked women than by naked men. Kind of sucks because as a man, you want that feeling that your female partner loves and appreciates your body in the same way that you appreciate theirs, but that often doesn't happen. What I find weird about this meme is that it's about the suffering for women, you know? Like, we don't even like men, but we have to put up with this. Us poor, poor women, we're just resigned to our fate, you know, martyrs to the cause. From my perspective, I don't see it that way. You know, I feel sorry for men, you know, because we've got this opposite gender who's kind of lukewarm about us. You know, we go crazy for women. We love their bodies, we worship their beauty, and they're kind of like, yeah, okay, I need a man, so I'll kind of take you. It's like, oh, that's the level of devotion and affection we get? Great, lucky us. What are my qualifications and what makes me an expert? How do you deal with releasing anger? And what is the best way to meet women if you're constantly surrounded by men? All of these topics and many more are available as exclusive videos on my Patreon page. This includes my latest video, Is it possible for there to be too large of a hypergamy gap, where you are too much superior to a woman that she feels intimidated or scared that she's going to lose you, or possibly that you'll outgrow her. In this video, I go into detail about all the various hypergamy factors and to what degree you should be scared of there being too large of a gap. This includes things like height, money, intelligence, social status, life experience, sexual history. If you're nervous that you're developing so fast that you're actually going to be intimidating to women and that hypergamy is not going to work in your favor, I highly recommend you check out this video. For every video that I post on YouTube, I post an additional bonus video on my Patreon page. That means that at the moment, you're only seeing half of the total content that I create. If you'd like access to the other half, then please go and sign up at my Patreon. It's just a $5 a month subscription and you get instant access to a whole bunch of exclusive content. It's a wonderful way to support the channel and I would love to see you over there.